And welcome back. This is the 33rd video in the Flow Certified Professional Online Training Series. And we're going to be going through the 4D model, which you see here. Define, distill, deliver, and drive with vision in the center. This is basically the heart and soul of what we do in Flow. This is an iterative process that is methodology agnostic. It doesn't matter if you're doing traditional waterfall or if you're doing lean or ADCAR with the change management professionals or Agile or Scrum. This applies to everything. Think of it again as the umbrella that sits above all of these other methodologies, whether it's team level methodologies that I just mentioned or scaled versions like SAFe or LESS or Nexus. Because basically, if you don't get your definitions right, regardless of which methodology you use, you've already lost the game. It's that simple. And if you don't distill agreement, I'll guarantee you're going to get politics. And you'll be delivering the wrong thing, which is just going to get people upset. So these three are absolutely key in delivering what it is you want to deliver. Continuous improvement occurs up here in this area that we call drive, and that's continuing to drive the iterative process. We do that through retrospectives. We do that through measuring and doing projections at the program and portfolio and organizational levels. And the information's never perfect, but it gives the executives at least a feeling for the trends that are happening within the organization. And from those trends and trend lines, we can make projections that are within a range. On the average, they'll be right. And so it's not going to work with just a couple teams to pull off these types of things. You have to have the bigger picture. But when you start spreading this out over 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 teams, on the average, we are going to be right. And again, vision is at the core of everything that we're doing. You have to make sure that the vision that we're going to deliver and that we're driving towards is continuously, 10 times more than you think, communicated to everyone. And so now we've gone through the vision part of Flow. We've gone through the right people, including the 4R model, roles, and personalities. And now, and all of the other parts that we've gone through a lot, and now we're getting into the 4D model before we step into Flow and showing you how this all fits together. So the leadership takeaways are the 4D model: define, distill, deliver, and drive. We're going to talk about using the 4D model in reverse. Just like we use the 4R model in reverse, we can use the 4D model in reverse. The 4D model also mirrors classic Greek rhetoric because the 4D model mirrors the 4R model. The 4R model is for the individual. The 4D model is for the team, for programs, products, portfolios, for the whole organization. And then we're going to talk about accountability and commitment and how to break this inform-act cycle, where the executive informs everybody, this is what I want done, and they expect action, and then they're upset when it doesn't happen, okay? Because they've missed a whole bunch of steps in between. And so for the executives that are listening to this, this is really important for you to understand how to apply the 4D model in the real world in order to get yourself out of that inform-act downward spiral that is just going to make you look bad. Okay. And remember the poster with all the check marks about where they violated the values of the organization? Doing this, the Inform Act, is one of those, and you should just stop doing it. You're not getting anywhere actually doing that, and you're creating unnecessary heartburn for yourselves. And to me, that just doesn't make any sense at all, not from any logical perspective. And so then we're going to talk about how to apply the 4D model to a gain agreement and commitment and force the executives in a way to belly up to the table and ante up, okay, and commit the resources and budget that actually is needed in order to act. As we've shared before, and I already did at the beginning, you got to have the definitions. Definitions will make or break you. It doesn't matter if you're using a work breakdown structure or a product backlog, however you're organizing those chunks of work, if those aren't properly defined by the time you're delivering the final product, you failed. The biggest definition you got to do up front is the vision and the strategy, and eliminate that disconnect between the people and tasks if you're thinking about from the leadership perspective, or from the project and tactics if you're thinking of from getting the hard work done perspective. Got to distill that agreement or the politics will rear its ugly head. And if you don't get these first two right, this isn't going to work. And the problem is, just like that Inform Act cycle, people think, oh, we got our definitions and now we can go deliver. I haven't seen a project yet, ever, where, for example, the Gantt chart at the beginning matches the Gantt chart at the end. Never happens. Because there's always up here, there's going to be that, oh, by the way, can you make this one small change? Because as they get into it and they get a better feel for what it is that's going to be delivered, the executives will go, well, could we make this one small change? I think I shared this one in one of the other videos, but I had a CEO come to me, to our team, and say, Andrew, we need to make this one small change. And I looked at Rayo and I went, Rayo, that's a really interesting change. Can I talk with the team and find out what has to be sacrificed in the current backlog in order to do that small change? And more importantly, what's that going to cost you? So I went back with the team a day later, came back to Rayo, the CEO, and said, Rayo, we can make that change for you. Here's the list of everything you sacrifice that we can't get done if we do this one small change. And, oh, by the way, it will cost you 1.2 million euros more to do that one small change than what we started with here. Is that one small change worth multiples of that 1.2 million? His eyes got big and he goes, it ain't even worth half of that. Keep doing what you were doing. And so that is what you're going to be coming up against. Anytime you hear that, oh, by the way, we forgot this one small thing. The minute that's happened, by definition, you have a new project because you didn't have all the definitions. That's the beauty of Agile. You don't need all the definitions up front. I can have a small backlog and we'll iterate and we'll get there. And so that's one of the key differences between traditional and Agile is I don't need to do a huge, we need to get everything up front. Not many organizations are doing it that way anymore. And so you don't have to do huge efforts in order to get the boat going. Okay, it's sort of like that video that we had at the beginning of this entire series where they're building the plane in the air. Okay, that's almost the idea of Agile, is that you don't have to have everything in order to get going. And for a lot of people, that makes a lot of people really nervous. And I'll go back to that idea and word picture that I use in Swedish, is that you have to have a little bit of ice in your belly. Okay, you got to keep cool. And you have to be able to balance the unknowns against the knowns and be comfortable enough with what you do know in order to not let the unknowns really rattle you. Because if you allow that to happen, if you feel like you have to have every last detail ready before you go, somebody else is going to go get it done and deliver it to the market, just like Apple did with the iPhone when they wiped out Nokia. Okay? And here it is in reverse, and I already shared the little explosion right here, the oh, by the way. The other thing you can do is, if you're seeing in the retrospectives and in the reviews, because that's really what you're doing when you're driving, if you're in the product, service, or result, and you're in the review and you go, this isn't what we wanted, we need to go back and look at, was it a delivery issue? Was it a distill agreement issue? Or was it a definition issue? 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the definitions were off that caused this to happen. So just like with an individual, same thing with the team or the product or the organization. You use this in reverse in order to be able to get to the root cause. And then we use other tools, of course, when we get down. We can use 5 whys or any of the other root cause analysis tools that are out there. We can use Ishikawa fishbone diagram or whatever you want to use. But you still need to dig down into and figure out what is it that has caused that. And we use this with the teams all the time, especially in the retrospectives when we're trying to help the teams improve. Just like with the 4R model, the 4D model also mirrors the classic Greek rhetoric pretty well, okay? You've got the definitions and logos are a one-to-one. I mean, words and definitions, I mean, those go hand in hand. There is no mismatch there whatsoever. Distilling agreement, if you look at ethics and ethos and values and attitudes in the place that we live, distilling agreement is pretty much a pretty good description of ethos. How is it that you want the place you live to be? Okay, what are the ethics that are going to govern us? Now, delivering stuff, if you're not having fun, and pathos is passion, if you're not having fun delivering things to the organization, then we got to go backwards and look at our distilled agreements and our definitions, because there's probably something wrong there. But anyone who's delivering value to the organization is going to be passionate about it, because we know we're adding value add, and that's exciting. There's nothing more exciting than being able to deliver real value to the organization. Continuous improvement. Remember, RAMA is words in action. Well, as you're watching those words in action, you drive via retrospectives and reviews. And so if the words in action aren't aligning with your vision, then you need to go back to your definitions and your distillation, things like that. But this is a pretty good picture, because driving is an active word. It's like a verb. I'm driving my car. Well, it's the same thing for RAMA. Those are words in action. This is breathing life into the teams. And again, this is why your words are so important. They have creative force. And so you need to be speaking words that breathe life into your team, not words that suck the life out of it. Here's a really good picture, and thank you to Bob Geist. Actually, that should be Flow Certified Coach there for distilling this illustration. And also thanks to Christopher, who gave us the feedback part, because originally we were only dealing with the first 3 D's here: definitions, distillation, and deliver. But he made a really good point that we need to have the drive, which is the feedback, and that's what makes these sustainable. And it's the real conversation that matters. Ted and I have been saying this for decades. It's the real conversation that matters, not all of the noise that's going on. It's the real conversation. And so if you have executives that are going, well, this is what's got to be done, do it, you go act. You need to back that executive up, just like I did with Rayo on, hey, oh, by the way, we got this one small change we got to make. Well, yeah, sure. You sacrifice all of this, and it's going to cost you $1.2 million. Shall we go forward? And that was an intuitive way of applying the 4D model to help the executive make a decision between two options. And so it's not enough to inform. You need to get the understanding. And after you get the understanding of what the definitions are, then you can distill agreement. But even distilling agreement's not enough. You got to get the commitment. So you distill and get commitment. So it takes real money to deliver these things. And just like I did with Rayo, if you're not getting that commitment, he's like, 1.2 million and I have only had budget to do this over here, and that 1.2 million will only get me 600,000. No, we're not going to do that. Okay. And so intuitively, using the 4D model, I was able to break the inform act cycle. And so if you get the commitment and you get the budget, great, let's go forward. We can go into delivery and we can act. And then in order to drive this, we need to give the feedback so that we can make it sustainable. And this is just a really great way of using the 4D model to break the inform act cycle that so many companies have. And basically this is about a level 2 leader. Okay, when you're thinking about level 5 leaders, level 2, maybe level 3. If you're a competent level 3, you're not going to do stuff like this. Okay, you're going to intuitively go through this, even though you might not explicitly call it out. We're explicitly calling it out, saying you need to do this. And if you're seeing this and you're getting frustrated with your line management or your leadership, you need to document this and help them and walk them through it, because they might not have intended it that way. And you can do this in a positive way. You don't have to beat them up, but you need to be able to break the bad habits. And so it's continuously train, coaching, and mentor every direction in the organization in order for your individuals and teams to succeed. So we're coming up on almost 2/3 complete in the entire series. You guys are doing a great job hanging in there. We've talked about the 4D model, and the 4D model is interwoven into almost everything that we do. We do it subtly, sometimes we call it out explicitly, and it's there. And this sits above all other methodologies, and it's methodology agnostic. We showed you how to use it in reverse to get to a root cause if you're having those blow-ups. Gave you an example of how I've used this in the past. We showed how the 4D model also mirrors classic Greek rhetoric, and how to break that inform act cycle in order to get the accountability and the commitment of that leader, how to do that and how to break it. Because they get trapped into patterns as well. You got to recognize that pattern and break the pattern in order to be able to step forward into a sustainable state of flow. And we also talked about how to use the 4D model to do that. So start thinking about how you can start using the 4D model in creative ways with traditional classic waterfall, lean, Kanban theories of constraints, change management, Agile, Scrum. Okay? And then think about what steps you can take right now as a leader to break the inform act cycle if you're seeing that manifesting in your organization.